Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Erica, and today this is the second installment in my backlog TBR reading. This is a series that I recently started where I'm going to be going through some books that have been in my backlog for like a real long time. Some of them were a long time, but some of them I guess not so long. But the books in this series are books where like they're kind of there and I don't really have a real plan for them. So this is an attempt to make a plan for them for these rando books that I have wanted to read, but they just don't ever get lucky enough to get chosen. So this is the Chronicles of the Black Gate. I have the omnibus edition on my ebook collection, and so I read through the first book, The Path of Flames. That's what I'm going to be discussing in this video today. Now, I haven't read anything else by Phil Tucker. This is my first exposure to him, although from what I know, he's written quite a lot. And actually, I recently bought a Kickstarter from him, so I will ideally be reading through some more Phil Tucker in not too long. But I think maybe the Chronicles of the Black Gate was Phil Tucker's sort of debut series. It got a ton of praise for being a really well done portal fantasy. It's been on my list to read forever, and I finally did. And you know what? Turns out it's fantastic. This is a world where religion really seems to take the center stage. It plays a major part in people's everyday lives, in the empires that are sort of like competing with each other for rule of the land. The countries in this book that are within the Ascendant Empire, which is where most of our characters live, it all seems to be based on like a hierarchical system, like a class system that's based, it's religious based as well, and it's like reincarnation. So essentially what they believe is that however far along you are in your journey towards ascendancy, that is where you were born into within the empire. So if you are like a high level, you're cruising along, doing well, then you're going to be born into like a more prestigious part of the empire. If you are, I don't know, you're just starting out, or maybe you haven't been doing so well in your past lives, you are born way down bottom of the empire. Like, think of it as like, you know, the pyramid, you're bottom of the pyramid if you haven't been doing well in your past lives. Ascendancy is the ultimate goal of this religion and the people that are within this empire. What they believe is that you go through like all of your reincarnations to ultimately be worthy of crossing the White Gate and ascending, right? And what they believe on the flip side is that if you do real bad and you do bad enough for a long enough amount of time, or I guess with enough lives, then you end up going through the Black Gate. The Black Gate is essentially like a gate to hell, and with the characters that we experience here, like the Black Gate is always used in a very negative way. You know, people view it as just a very terrible thing. The Black Gate, they refer to it in, I think there's even some cursing that happens involving like the Black Gate. Like it's a very, very negative thing, okay? Nobody wants the Black Gate in this world. With the gates, right? The White Gate, the Black Gate. In general, though, this is a portal fantasy, so there are other gates. I believe they're referred to, at least some of the times, as lunar gates. They're like tied to the cycles of the moon, from what I've been able to gather in this first book, and they can take you to different locations. So it's not just the White Gate and the Black Gate on the polar ends of their like reincarnation religion, but we've also got gates where you can like portal jump to other locations within this world too. 5 of the 6 characters that we're following are either like together because they already know each other, or they're brought together along the way. There's one character who's like off doing his own thing, at least for now. He's interesting too, and we'll talk about the characters in a minute. But otherwise, we're following like essentially 2 different locations where it's the one character off doing his thing, but then the other 5 characters kind of grouped together doing their thing. We start the book by learning that there's this really long ongoing war between the Ascendant Empire and another country that used to be part of the empire, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher the name of it, but it's the Agarastians. let me double check that name. Hold on. Yes, the Agarastians. They are viewed as like heretics by the Ascendant Empire. And the start of the book actually immediately kicks off showing us a battle between the Ascendants and the Agarastians. And I have to say, it was so well done. This author displayed immediately that he knows how to write not only an engrossing introduction, but he knows how to execute a battle. Like it was not too much detail. It was not too few detail. It was enough to where, you know, you can follow along. It's believable. You're not getting lost in the weeds. It was exciting. I thought it was a really, really good choice to start off the story this way. So we get to get introduced to one of our main characters this way too, because he happens to be on the battlefield. We get glimpses of some other really... There are characters who in concept are more important through the rest of the story, so we only get a little bit of interaction with them right at the very beginning of the book. Then we don't really interact with any of them at all. Well, maybe one of them. No spoilers, so I won't say which one. But for the rest of the book, at least like the shadow of these characters looms over the plot, over our main characters. Like the concept of these people is really important. So I thought that it was a really smart move for the author to introduce so much of that up front before taking it away, giving us a glimpse firsthand of these characters that are going to be important to our main characters later on. So after that initial battle is when we see the plot split off happen. So we follow 5 characters who are part of House Kyfrin. Lord Kyfrin, like the very beginning of the book, so this is not a spoiler, he ends up dying. And so we see House Kyfrin kind of trying to recover from this shock and what happens, and they end up having to go to like this ruin, this castle ruin out in the wilderness. And so we follow our five of our main characters, I guess I should say, as they go to this ruinous castle out in the wilderness. Out at this location, there's a lot of lore. There's a lot of like evil creatures around, so it very much felt, as I was reading it, like, I don't know, it just felt like an RPG. It was a lot of fun, which is kind of weird to say, but if you like that kind of thing, like characters thrown into a mysterious location, they have to discover like the ancient history and the mystery around this location, and all of like these, I don't know, kind of evil creatures that are about that they've got to deal with. This would be right up your alley too. These characters are also preparing for what they know is going to be like an oncoming war. So they're trying to prepare for that. They're also learning at the same time about different magic that they were unaware of previously. And like I said, some knowledge that they didn't have before they got to this ruined castle, they have now, and they've got just kind of like the tip of the iceberg of it. So they're just starting to uncover things that I think are going to open up so much plot opportunity in the subsequent books. It actually made me really excited to read the next books for what we started seeing the characters discovering by the end of this one. So the other plot that we follow is like a lone survivor character who ends up, he is the lone survivor of a battle from his tribe. Like the rest of his tribe, his family was completely wiped out. So for the duration of this book, like he's off doing his thing. We watch him survive that, join a new clan, and then he starts to develop a plan to restore like not just himself but his people to a position of power. That's what we see him working towards by the end of the book. The path that he's on, I can kind of see how it's most likely going to end up joining with the other 5 main characters. Presumably it will, right? Like, why would we watch... I guess we could read this whole book about this one random character off by himself and read this whole series and he never encounters any of the other characters. It would be a little bit weird, but I guess it's possible, but I don't think so. I see like some of the groundwork being laid for how his character off doing his thing might end up coming together with the other main characters, maybe in the next book, but I could see it taking longer than that too. you know, it might be a couple books, I don't know, but I can see like he has to go through his own journey separately, but I think that there's a way that's going to make a lot of sense for him to join with the other characters in one of the upcoming books. So speaking of characters, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the characters that we have here, because we follow 6 main characters, so we've got perspective shifts throughout the book. Even though this book is over 600 pages, I still felt like it was not enough time with each of the characters. I found them all really compelling, distinct, like they each had distinct personalities. I think the author did that really well. I think that he did a good job in presenting reasons to care about each character, what each character was doing and thinking. I'm not sure if the series is going to add other characters as we go along, like to be getting different perspectives. If it didn't, I would be fine if it stayed with this, because there's no character that I don't really like or that I'm not really interested in. There's characters for sure that I find more interesting than others, but I think that all of them are characters that I want to read about. There's no chapter that would come up where I'd be like, oh God, I gotta get through this chapter, which is a good thing. It's always a risk, I think, when we have chapters that rotate perspectives, because sometimes I'll be reading a book and there'll just be a character that I'm like, I don't really care about this person, but I'm gonna be forced to read about them because part of the story. And I didn't feel that way with any of these characters, which was great. The 6 main characters, we've got Asho. He was born, I want to keep calling him a Byzantine slave, but that is not what it is. There are no Byzantines in this book. Let me look at what he's actually called. A Bithynian slave. So you know what? It was close. It's close to Byzantine. I'm gonna use that as an excuse. A Bithynian slave, and he's recently been promoted tonight, and so we watch him through this book trying to adjust to his new station in life, because as a Bithynian, they're like, you know, in the hierarchical ascendancy reincarnation thing, the Bithynians are like bottom of the pyramid. In fact, I think the Black Gate is like literally in Bithynian territory. They are seen as, I don't know, almost like evil just from like association, which is terrible. So Asho, though, like he's recently been promoted tonight, so he's got this new station in life. He's supposed to be getting respect from people now because of his position, you know, his demonstrated skill, and he's working hard to adjust to that. He also has a sister that he's lost, but it's unclear exactly how that happened, and there's some things later in the book that have me questioning more of what we're gonna see with that, but I can't really talk about it because that is spoilery. So I'll just say I want to know more about his sister and what's going on with that, because it's something that causes him a lot of pain, and we didn't get obviously the full story in this one, so a little mystery with Asho to go moving forward. He's also like, he's got some skills and things that he's been training for a long time on, but like some new skills that he's learning too, and I'm very interested to see him continue on that journey. Iskra is the wife of the now dead Lord Kyfrin, and so she's now in charge of all of these people who were previously loyal to her husband. She's the boss now, so she is in a position where she's got to like become the leader, do all this strategic thinking and planning for this oncoming war, and with being at this, you know, rural ruined castle location, basically trying to keep everything together. Keth, she's the daughter of the now dead Lord Kyfrin. Her mother is Iskra. She's someone who really wants to be a warrior. She wants to be respected for being strong, kind of going against what the expectation for a girl, you know, a teen girl in her position would be. She wants to be a knight. That's her goal. And she's been working hard to try to achieve that. So she also really, really loved her father, Lord Kyfrin. At least respected the hell out of him. I guess I should say that. And since his death, she has been learning that maybe he wasn't such a great guy. So we see a lot of her development in this book too, trying to come to terms with the reality of what she thought she knew, like, could be different I guess I should say that what she thought she'd do might be different from the reality of what was really going on. And we see her like struggling with that. Also struggling with her new position because, you know, with her father dead, everything has changed. She's also obviously at this ruined castle. So a lot of sudden changes for her that she's coping with too. Tyrion, he is a disgraced knight. He formerly served Lord Kyfrin, who's now dead. You'll see a theme here, right? Everybody tied to Lord Kyfrin somehow. So Tyrion, he lost his station. He was imprisoned. He's been released by Iskra. She let him out, and so he's now kind of trying to like come to terms with everything that's happened and find his spot, like what he needs to do now, where his loyalties should lie. He's gone through a lot. He's a really empathetic character based on just everything that's happened to him in the time before this book began. So we get to see a good part of his backstory, and he's really rough around the edges kind of guy, but his backstory makes him easy to empathize with. I think he probably ended up being my favorite character through this book. I tend to gravitate to like the rough around the edges characters. I'm really invested to see what he's going to do next, where he's going to end up, I guess I should say, because he's kind of unpredictable because he's in a lot of pain and he's very angry, and based on what we've seen, he's justified in how he feels. And he's also a very powerful warrior. He's like one of the best knights that ever was. And so he's kind of a wild card now, and I'm really I'm excited to see what's coming next for him. And then last is Magister Audsley. So I love this guy. He's like a scholar and he's a huge nerd, and when there's anything going on, like could be anything, dangerous things, he's like, I just want to be like scholarly and learn about it. And he's obsessed with his fire cat. I just really liked this character a lot. I thought that Audsley brought a lot of levity to the rest of what was going on in the story. The story it can get very dark. There's a lot of violence in this, a lot of heavy themes, and I thought that Audsley, he is a serious character, but so much of who he is more like, you know, this is relatable. Like, you got things happening all around you. You're in a dangerous situation, but you're seeing like all of these scrolls that you've never even known existed before, and your instinct is just like, oh, I want to sit and read them. Like, what do they say? This is so mysterious. Like, you know what? I can understand where you're coming from, okay? And I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with Audsley. So that's the group of 5. The last character, the dude who's like off on his own, is The Rock. He is one of the mountain crag. When I say crag, I think of that Nickelodeon show from the 90s. Oh god, I can't think of the name of it. If I think of the name of it, I'll put it up here. But that Nickelodeon show with like the mountain that the kids had to like climb, it's competition. It's not that, is it? Is this guy called a crag just like that? Oh god. Anyway, this character Thorok is more of like a creature. Honestly, the way he's described, he's got like fangs that come up, and like he's unusually strong. It seems they've got a shorter lifespan than humans. Like they're distinctly not human. Maybe kind of orc-like creatures, except not like, I don't know, specifically bred for evil. They're just kind of like, I don't know, orc-like creatures. That's how I'm picturing it. But this character is a super badass warrior. He's the only surviving member of his clan, and he is working now to, he's joined a different clan, and he's got kind of the start of a plan that we don't know the full plan yet, because it's being revealed to us in bits and pieces, for him to like restore his people, or his creatures, his crag, restore his crag two positions of power. That's kind of what we're seeing, and I really enjoyed The Rock. Like I said, he's a pretty badass warrior, and just he's been a fun character to read in general. And I always just like a character who's, I don't know, they're always down to fight, right? Like they're DTF, but down to fight. That's what I like. That's what I like in a character, and he serves that for me. So I am really looking forward to seeing where The Rock goes next, what his plan is actually going to be. I want to see more of it revealed, and I'm excited to see how ultimately in the series he ends up joining with the other characters too. I wanted to touch on, just highlight a few things that I think the book does really well. I know I already talked about starting off the battle scene, and that was consistent throughout this book. Like there's some battle scenes, there's some fight scenes with like smaller groups or one-on-one, and it was all done in a way that was really interesting to read. All of it seemed like it served a purpose. None of it seemed like pointless or gratuitous or anything. I mean, there's a lot of violence in this, don't get me wrong, but it all seemed to have a point, and that's what I really liked reading about. It was exciting. It really had me like nervous for the characters as I was reading, and so it was a good way, I think, to keep me not just engaged, because it's an exciting thing to read when an author can write that well, but it got me invested in the characters too, right, in their survival. Every time we would have a battle or a fight or anything like that, I was like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Ooh, is our character gonna die? I don't know, we're gonna have to read and see. And then the characters, obviously, I think, you know, this is just book one, we've got 4 more books to go, but I think so far it's off to a really strong start with the characterization that the author is doing, and I get really invested in characters. Like, I want solid character development. I don't really like generic characters, like a fill in the blanks kind of thing. I want you, author, to give me characters that you've clearly thought a lot about. Give me characters whose actions make sense in, you know, what we know of them as people or beings. Sometimes I guess The Rock is not a human, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I want characters that are just really well thought out, and I feel like we're off to a super strong start with this. I'm invested in everyone so far. There's no one where I'm hoping they don't survive, which is great. So I'm excited to see everyone's journey continue in the next books. There's a lot of intrigue that the author has managed to create. He's like breadcrumbing information about the religion, the cultures, the history in this book, and it's enough to where it's like I have some ideas of like what things currently are, but then I have just enough to have some ideas of what might actually be going on, but not enough to know, where it's enough to have fun speculating. And that's what I really enjoy doing, is the speculation is part of the fun. Like, I prefer it's exciting when an author can do it well, where they're like, let me just like tease and naturally unveil this over time. And I think he's doing such an awesome job, because this first book, I know enough to where it's interesting, but I also know enough to know I don't know the whole story. And that keeps it interesting too, because it makes me want to read and find out more about what might really be going on, what's gone on in the past. Like, he's done an awesome job. I am deeply invested. And then the last thing I think that the author did really well throughout this book is, this is a serious book. Like, it's a book that is serious. Like, it's a lot of violence. There's high stakes in it. Characters are in danger frequently. There's evil stuff, like overarching, you know, good versus evil battles that are happening and like about to be happening as well. But yet the author did a good job at bringing like moments of levity to it too, like with some of the characters, some of the things that were going on. It wasn't just all like so depressing, like drive you into the ground. There was enough that like kind of brings some positivity or like hope to it. There was a couple times where I laughed in this book. Just overall, I think that the author did a good job at balancing the tone of it, if that makes sense, where it's serious enough for the subject matter and I can take it seriously, but also it was realistic in a way that's like, even in serious situations, not everything is just like so dark and down all the time, right? There's gonna be some more lighthearted things sometimes, and I think that the author did a really good job capturing that in a realistic way. And I think it's something subtle that, I mean, I don't know that I always notice when it's missing, but I try to notice when it's present, like when an author can bring that kind of balance. And I think that he did. I think this book was a good example of bringing balance to the tone. All right, some non-spoiler final thoughts, and then I've got some spoilery final thoughts that I'm going to give a warning to before we switch to that. Okay, so here's my final thoughts with no spoilers. This book does not stand alone, okay? It ends on a complete cliffhanger for like everyone. There's no ambiguity where you can just be like, oh yeah, you know, maybe I'll just read the first one and someday pick up that. No, like we end on a complete, we don't know what's happening with any of our people, okay? So I'm actually glad that I maybe didn't read it right when this first came out, because then I would have had to wait a few months. I think the second book came out maybe like 6 months later, but look, I would have had to wait, okay? I don't want to wait. I want to see what's going to happen next to all of my people that I'm now invested in. But I think this first installment gives fantasy readers, I don't know, there's a little bit of everything. Like we've got high stakes, we've got compelling battle fight scenes, interesting characters that are distinct enough to where you can be like, you know what, I think I'm gonna grow to have strong feelings about most, if not all, of these characters if I continue with this series. And we also have some mysterious history and magic that we're starting to learn about, and I've really liked that. I think that there's so much potential with the magic and the history within this world that the author has just kind of given us like just a little bit of it. We don't get a lot. We get a little bit, enough to where it's like, I want to know more, because clearly there's a lot more going on that we don't know yet. The characters don't know, we the readers don't know, and I want to know. Plus, we just barely touched on the portal magic, which is apparently something that this series is known for. So we've got a lot of potential as far as like the magic and the history and the lore and all those things to explore in the subsequent books. So I'm very excited to do that. For right now, I think that that's all of my spoiler-free thoughts. So this is your last warning. I'm gonna say some spoilery things now. If you're leaving, please go read this book. This was excellent. Give this series a try if it sounds interesting at all. It was, despite being, I mean, it was over 600 pages, but it was a fast read. It was something where it was like page turning read. And so give it a try. You may really be into it, and then come back and let me know what you think. Okay, if you are still here, that means that you want to hear my spoiler thoughts. This is the final warning. I'm gonna say things that are spoilers now, so hopefully you've either read this book or you don't care and you're down for spoilers. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Thurrock first, okay? I really liked Thurrock. I loved just like how gruff he was. He's such a badass, and I need to know what is going on with this crown. Does this crown have a mind of its own, or does it just open up Thurrock's mind so that he can think more clearly, like more dynamically about things? I don't know, but I want to know, and presumably we're going to know more in the next book. Watching him go from like being the sole survivor to essentially ruling his people, I thought was, honestly, it felt believable the way that it was done. I mean, going from someone like that's being hunted to now being in charge, I thought that it was well done. I thought that it was executed well, and I don't know exactly how his story is going to join up with the rest of the group, but I think they're all leading towards a battle, so I think it could be maybe that way. They might end up ultimately joining forces to fight possibly the Ascendant Grace. Is one theory that I have right now. I just have like little inklings. I feel like with so much of this book, we got just enough to where I can like start to formulate theories, but we just got breadcrumbs, and I love it. It's so exciting to have enough, but not enough. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about this book in general. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Keith and Asho's magic develop, both like separately, because they're basically both just learning about their abilities, but also together. I mean, they seem to be like two sides of the same coin, and yet they're powerful individually, but together like super powerful. I think that has a lot of potential to be very interesting. I also can't tell if there's supposed to be romantic foreshadowing with them or not. I don't know. Maybe there might be. I could see that. I could see that happening because I mean they've known each other a long time, and now especially being thrown into this situation, you know, at the ruins and having to work together and all of that, I could see them ending up having a romantic relationship down the line in this story. Obviously, Lord Kyfrin was like a huge asshole, and I don't think that I need to say more about him than that. He did, so maybe we'll see more of him in flashbacks. I think that was probably, I don't know, that was probably the best way to go about this, because if I had to watch like a whole book of him real time being like a real asshole, I don't know that I would have enjoyed that. But being able to see how he was in the memories of characters that I do care about, I think is really effective. It also, because we're seeing it from those characters' perspective, I think really builds on the ability to relate to them. And so I'm okay. I'm okay with how this was done. Kyfrin was horrible. I'm glad that he's dead. So that's my feelings on Lord Kyfrin. I'm also really glad that we moved to the ruins from like the Kyfrin castle, because I think the setting is just so much more interesting. Not only the stakes, right? Like they're being kicked out of the castle and they know that they're going to be attacked within a couple of weeks of being kicked out. They find out just happenstance because Audsley happens to overhear a conversation that he wasn't supposed to hear. So we've got high stakes. We know that they're going to be attacked soon. But man, that ruinous castle, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like something out of D&D, you know, just exploring these possibly cursed ruins with these evil creatures around, or mysterious or weird creatures around. I thought that was so fun, and I'm really glad that we switched settings for this. I don't know how long we're gonna stay at this ruined castle or ruined keep, but I'm here for it. When I tell you I was so excited when Audsley found like that secret area with all of the scrolls, the books or whatever that he'd never heard of, and he totally geeked out and he wanted to read everything and he couldn't believe the things he was reading. He's like, oh my God, it's blowing my mind. Oh, as a reader, it's so satisfying when that kind of thing is a plot point. I'm a huge sucker for that kind of thing. Like, give me a mysterious location with long forgotten knowledge and someone discovering it. And I'm gonna eat that right up, okay? And I did, and it was great, and I loved it. In the next books, I'm hoping that we're gonna see, well, we'll talk about that in a second because Audsley's not there anymore, but I would love for him to come back and we get to see through his eyes more exploring of the knowledge that's in that keep, like literally buried in that keep. And then speaking of the secret room, I was gonna say secret groom. No, that's something different. The secret room and like the creatures that are like scuttling around and they're creepy. Like, the author did such a great job at using creatures in this story to really set the mood. And so like all the creatures, or I guess I should, maybe not all of them, because I don't know how many there were, but there were some, you know, the scuttly little creepy violent creatures that are like, they can disappear at will within the keep, right? I loved that. And like the giant demon thing that's out in the wilderness that, you know, most of our group is off hunting and helping the villagers. I thought that the author did a great job at showing some of the potential for what I hope will be more of what we see down the line for different creatures that pose a threat too. Because don't get me wrong, like I like political intrigue. I'm down with like human on human battling, right? But throw me in some creatures in there too. Like let's let's take it up a notch and have it not just be humans fighting, but give me some danger from mysterious evil creatures too, especially with the black gate being right there, or the little black gate. Should I call it a little black gate? Is that what we're calling it? A little black gate? That's it sounds very cute for what it is. Presumably, I guess we could talk about that next. What the hell is the black gate? Is it literally a gate to hell? Is it figuratively a gate to hell? I mean, we know that the gates in this world are portals, so you do actually go somewhere. But where does the black gate literally go? Does it literally go to hell? And on the opposite end, no pun intended, where does the white gate go? Is it go to like a heaven type place? Is it a literal portal to heaven? Where does it end up though? Is it somewhere else in this world? Why can't you just go to the white gate and go through it if it's a real thing? Questions about these gates. I want to see more too of like the lunar gates that we see, which seem to be, as the names imply, tied to like the timing of the moon. Very much interested to see that. Audsley and is it Tyron? They just disappeared at the end into one of the gates, not the little black gate, but a different gate that was down in the secret room. They just disappeared. We don't know where they went. Unknown. They're like, all right, peace out. See you in like a month. So I presume we're going to pick up with them off doing their own thing. So I guess we're going to have at least three different settings in the next book, because we're going to have The Rock off doing his thing. We're going to have Audsley and Tyron off doing their thing through whatever portal they went to. And then we're going to have the remaining group of 3 people, presumably still at the keep, I guess. But going back to the black gate briefly, because we got that little black gate right out in the mountains. Is Asho going to go through it? I really want to see what happens to it, since apparently he's like a sin caster. Is that going to be bad if he goes through it? He's also a Bithian. So is he going to be able to go through it and be fine? Or like, are there consequences no matter what of going through the black gate? I want somebody to go through the black gate. As of right now, he might be the best candidate. I guess I don't know. Or him and Keith, right? Keth. I got to figure out which way I'm going to pronounce that, because it's going to be another thing that drives me nuts through reading this whole series if I can't settle on a way to pronounce her name. Are they going to have to go together? Because, I mean, he can really only do sin casting effectively if she is there, because of like the drain on him. So are they going to both have to go through the black gate? I'm talking like it's a given thing that somebody's going through the black gate, but I presume it's called the Chronicles of the Black Gate. We got to go through the black gate at some point, right? I feel like it's a tease if we're gonna even title our series that, and we don't end up through the black gate. So presumably somebody's going through this black gate at some point. I think they might be Asho and Keth. I think I'm going to settle on Keth. Presumably they're going to go through. I feel like they'd be good candidates to make it successfully through the black gate. Is sin casting actually evil though? Because that's kind of the point that I wanted to get to. Is it actually evil? I mean, Asho can do it. He doesn't come across as like an evil dude. We don't really know a whole lot. We know like the stigma, the religious stigma that the Ascendant Empire has on sin casting, but we don't really know too much else about it, and so we don't really know what's going on with the magic. We know the effect that it has on the people who use it. It like drains them, but is it inherently evil? Is it an inherently evil thing to be a sin caster? I feel like we don't know. We don't know enough. I mean, I feel like we do know enough to know that the Ascendant Empire is likely wrong about like their whole religious thing, because you know they strongly believe in, you know, the hierarchical ascension plan, but like the local villagers, what is it, like the Herethings, was that their name? They don't believe in that kind of thing. They believe much more in kind of like a live and let live. If you're a decent person, you can just like go to the white gate. You don't got to go through all of that like reincarnation business. If you're like a decent person, you just get like front of the line to the white gate. And so I know with the information that Audsley found down in that secret room, I think it was enough to once again breadcrumb that like the Ascendant Empire doesn't know everything, and maybe what they do know or they say they know is very misleading, and that there's a lot for us, I think, to discover with their religion in this world and the history of it and the magic. I think that there's enough to build on. It's going to be really interesting to see what the author reveals to us. Also, what is going on with the Ascendant Grace? Okay, he's supposed to be like achieved the point where when he dies, he's gonna like go through the white gate by default, right? And that's supposed to be something that everyone is super excited about and they're fine with it and it doesn't freak them out. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna go through the white gate and it's gonna be awesome. But yet he's out here taking like mysterious, seemingly evil potions to stay alive. So what's going on with this guy? He's also teaming up with, you know, Lord Kyfrin's brother, apparently, who has some pretty evil plans. So he's all signs point to Ascendant Grace not being a good guy. I'm curious to see when he's going to be brought back to, like, in person with the main characters, because it was only Asho that's ever dealt with him in person. And so it'll be interesting to see. Maybe he's going to have to come back to do, I don't know, some kind of fight with Asho and Keth, I guess. Could make sense because they're very powerful magic users. So that that could be an option too. My last question slash thought is that obviously, so at the end, Thorok gets that, like that new human that he bought or freed or whatever we want to call it. And it's obviously Asho's sister. And I was thinking up to that point that she was dead, but it hit me, obviously, no, apparently she's alive and that's her. So what exactly happened with her? I don't know. Presumably we're going to get more information as the story unfolds. Maybe, you know what, if we are going to add more perspectives, like if the author is going to add more, maybe she would be a good perspective to add, like to the next book. To see things from her eyes, because like she's the rando human among all the Crag, plus I mean we can find it easy to care about her because she's a connection to Asho. So maybe, I don't know, I know these books are already written and the author's not going to go back to change it, but I don't know, Phil Tucker, if you're watching, maybe you could time travel and add her as add her as a perspective to the next book. Well, maybe, I don't know. Overall, this book was so good. It was, well, I would say page turning, but I mean, I read it on my Kindle. It was click inducing. This is me pressing the click button. I have a little button on my Kindle to turn the page, and that's what I was doing. I was clicking it, turn the page real fast. This was so good. I was not expecting to be like as invested right away as I was, as engaged throughout the entire story as I was. I think that this author, like Phil Tucker, good job, dude. You did an incredible job introducing so much world building and character development and kept an interesting plot. The pacing was so good. Just like, I really don't have criticism. I have like no criticism about this book. Because I was sitting here before I started filming, because I was reading through my notes and everything, and I realized like I don't have things written down where I'm like, I didn't really like that. And it's because there was nothing about this book that I didn't like. And so I don't know. I don't know that I'm fully in 5-star read. I have to think about it more. It's still like a fresh read for me, but this was really good. This was a really good book. I'm very excited to read the next installment and to see what happens with everyone, see what kind of world building we get. Like I said, he's built so much potential into what he has going on already, and I'm very excited to see where he takes this story. Those are all of my thoughts. I've been talking for a while about just this one book, and honestly it's been kind of a long time since I've talked for such a long time about one book, but man, this one was just a lot of fun, and it was It was so good, and I want to talk about it. I don't know anybody in real life that has read this book, so I don't have anybody to talk about it with. If you have watched this far, thank you. Thank you for being here. But also, let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. I mean, if you've watched this far, you probably have also read this. What did you think? Did you, do you have any favorite characters? Like, no spoilers, please. No spoilers for going forward, but what were your feelings about the first book? Did you also find it, like, exciting how the author kind of, like, dropped little tidbits of what might be in store for the rest of the series? Do you have a favorite character so far? Let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are in general. I'm always interested to hear what other people think. But I am going to be starting on the next book. Oh, hopefully soon. There's a couple that I'm finishing up right now. And I'll be ideally starting on the second book, which is going to be The Black Shriving. So maybe we'll get to see the Black Shriving. I assume based on the title of it. If we don't get to see the Black Shriving, that's going to be kind of a letdown. But maybe we'll get to see more creatures come out of that little black gate. I'd be down for that. Anyway, those are all of my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.